Hi everyone, I'm Brandy, an OpenSciEd teacher and professional learning facilitator. Welcome to OpenSciEd Chemistry, Unit 4, Lesson 4. In this lesson, we use molecular formulas to predict which substances are acids, bases, or neither. We use mathematical thinking to compare quantities of particles and concentrations in different solutions and conduct an investigation, and then develop a model to explain our results. Let's get started. Let's take a look at how we got here. So during lesson 3, we figured out how to interpret the pH scale, including how the pH of a solution is determined by the ratio of hydrogen and hydroxide ions in a solution. In this lesson, we're wondering, what is it about a substance that determines whether it produces more or fewer hydrogen or hydroxide ions when it's added to water? Here's the lesson at a glance. This investigation takes place over 2 days. The teacher's guide says about 60 minutes of material preparation is required to prepare the solutions for the investigation. If you don't have a materials kit, this might take you a little bit longer to prepare everything for the lab groups. You students will need to access devices during this lesson to access the electronic exit ticket at the end of the lesson. There are 2 big parts in this lesson. Let's see what's happening in each. In the first loop, we make predictions about which substances will produce hydrogen ions and which substances will produce hydroxide ions. Then we compare the solutions using mathematical thinking and compare the quantities of particles and concentrations of different solutions. Next, we'll conduct a pH concentration investigation and then analyze and interpret our data. We figure out that all acids produce hydrogen ions. All bases produce hydroxide ions. We also figure out the degree to which the different acids or bases dissociate into ions in water varies. This, along with the initial concentration of acid or base in a solution, or molarity, can affect the pH. We wonder, why do solutions with the same concentration or molarity of substances in them produce different concentrations of hydrogen or hydroxide ions when they are dissolved in water? In the second loop, we develop an initial model to explain the differences in pH values for 2 acids of the same concentration. Then we have a building understandings discussion to discuss acid and water interactions and understanding around dissociation and degrees of dissociation. We complete an electronic exit ticket individually. Finally, there's an optional home learning about pH and organisms. We figure out interactions between water and molecules of acid or base particles help explain why some acid and bases dissociate more completely in water. Although carbon dioxide is not an acid, it must react with water to form a product that contains hydrogen in it. Because we aren't sure whether each acid molecule formed water molecules chemically by reacting with carbon dioxide dissociates into 1 or 2 hydrogen ions, and because we don't know whether carbon dioxide gets into the water or interacts with the water at the surface when this happens, we want to investigate these questions further next time. We figured out that different acids and bases break apart into ions in water of different amounts. This, along with how concentrated the solution is, affects its pH. The attraction between water molecules and acids or bases helps explain why some acids and bases break apart more completely than others in water. And now for a few key moments. In part 2, you and your students will experience the first key moment of this lesson by examining the chemical formulas for the substances that are listed here, identifying the patterns, and predicting which ones are acids and which ones are bases, or which ones are neither. You'll want to make sure that the students collectively identify the pattern that acids contain hydrogen and that bases contain oxygen and hydrogen. Later in this lesson, you'll help them make connections regarding the amounts of these specific ions that are produced. In part 3, we'll learn that molarity is a unit that's used to simplify the comparison of the large numbers in the particles. To help explain this concept, I relate molarity to the concentration of a drink mix, like making lemonade, in the same amount of water. If we use the recommended amount of powdered drink mix or more or less, we can definitely taste the difference in the taste of the drink. Students immediately apply this key concept in part 4 as they conduct the pH concentration investigation and decide which molarity of substances to test so that it's a fair comparison. It should be fair as long as we compare the solutions of the same concentrations or molarities. You'll assign half of the lab groups to test the 1.0 molar solutions and the other half of the lab groups to test the 0.1 molar solutions, just like we compared the recommended concentrations or compared the watered down versions. I'll share more about how I manage this lab in the tips and tricks section. In part 5, the lab groups will then share and compare their results with other groups that tested different molarities of solutions. They will come to the conclusion that the substances tested, hydrochloric, acetic, and sulfuric, are all acids. The hydrochloric acid and the sulfuric producing very low pH of 1, meaning the higher concentration of hydrogen ions than acetic acid. They will also conclude that the bases are sodium hydroxide, potassium hydroxide, and ammonium hydroxide, and that sodium hydroxide and potassium hydroxide produce a very high pH of 13 to 14, meaning a higher concentration of hydroxide ions than ammonium hydroxide. After completing the modeling hydrogen ion concentration handout individually in Part 6, the students will use their ideas in Part 7 to collaboratively develop explanations for why different acids produce different pH values. As they share their thinking, you'll record their ideas on the acid and water interactions chart. Next, you'll facilitate a building understandings discussion to help the class refine a shared explanation. The purpose of the discussion is to build the idea that the differences in pH result from differences in the degree of dissociation of the acids in water. Strong acids completely dissociate, producing a higher concentration of hydrogen ions, while weak acids only partially dissociate. The key takeaway is that the acids differ not simply in whether they dissolve, but in how completely they dissociate or break apart in the water. These differences in the degree of dissociation explain the different hydrogen ion concentrations and pH values that we observe. This is massively important for the sense making in the lessons that are leading up to and immediately following Lesson 7's midpoint assessment. It's also pretty cool that our students are engaged in AP level thinking without even realizing it. And we've taught general chemistry students more than just rote math or simple categorization. At the end of this lesson, these students will be able to infer something about intramolecular forces. That's pretty impressive. So where do we go from here? We use the identified, tested, and modeled the differences between acids and bases. So now we're wondering, how does carbon dioxide move between the atmosphere and the ocean to cause the water to become more acidic and hurt those poor baby oysters? Now for a few tips and tricks. So to prepare for part 4, you'll need to make up all of the strong and weak acids and bases at 1.0 molar and 0.1 molar concentrations. Depending on which kit company you used, you may have 2 different concentrations already, or you may need to measure out the masses and make the different solutions. Make sure you're clearly labeling all of your beakers and wearing gloves and eye protection as you prepare these solutions. See the directions in the teacher reference solution preparation document. I used 2 sheets of 8 different colors of paper to make station signs for the counters in my lab space. For each substance, I used the same color paper, but I had one say 1.0 molar and the other say 0.1 molar. I laminated these signs so that I could use them again in the future. And I put a 250 milliliter beaker with 100 milliliters of solution at each of the corresponding stations. I also distributed glass stir rods and paper towels as well as pH indicator strips to each station. You'll assign half of your students to test the 1.0 molar solutions and the other half to test the 0.1 molar solutions. So the lab space, I set it up a little bit like this. Students will only have to stay on their half of the room to minimize the cross traffic for safety. Rather than having my students walking across the room with weld plates and not clearly labeling the samples, I just instructed the students to use the glass stir rod to dip into the solution and dab it onto the pH strip. This method worked very well, and I didn't have to worry about students walking around my room with acids and bases. Of course, I had several students that were absent on that day, but I didn't want to keep all these chemicals around my classroom for who knows how long. So I wrote the pH of each substance on a sticky note and I put it on the back of the station sign. When the students returned, they still had to collect their own data by traveling to each of the stations, but now all they had to do was turn over the sign to get the pH. In part 7, the answer key doesn't have anything drawn in the boxes on the right column showing what happens to the particles. So I decided to make a key with different colors in it to represent the molecules that were involved. I made all of the water circles since it was easy to draw in the tiny space. For the strong acids, hydrochloric and sulfuric acid, I showed how those dissociated completely by writing the hydrogen ions separate from the rest of the remaining ion. For the weak acid, acetic acid, I showed that only some of the molecules broke apart and some stayed together by having some peak circles representing the whole molecule and then a couple where I had separated the hydrogen ion. You can see that I added a few more notes in my diagram too, such as labeling as if it was a strong or a weak acid. I also added the pHs that we had obtained for those samples, and I added the label vinegar to acetic acid to help my students make the connection to something that hopefully they're more familiar with. For the personal glossary, you'll co-construct with your students the meanings of mole, molarity, and degree of dissociation. For poster management, you'll need the matter, energy, and forces poster, and you'll be creating an acid and water interactions chart as you capture the student ideas and expectations for why different acids produce different pH values in Part 7. So to recap, in this lesson, we predicted whether substances are acids or bases or neither using molecular formulas. We compared particle amounts and solution concentrations, investigated the results, and created a model to explain our findings. Up next in Lesson 5, we'll investigate how carbon dioxide could naturally dissolve in water in an experimental setup in the lab, and we'll examine amounts of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and the hydrosphere. Good luck and have fun.